Video is going to be part 2 of my exploration guide, and this is going to cover the scanning aspect of exploration. And so a couple of things that I want to start off with before I get going is one of the things you probably want to do if you're going to be doing a lot of exploration is you want to set up a shortcut for your scanning. And so that's going to be under your settings. Go to shortcuts. You just hit escape, that'll bring you up to probably this page. I'll show it first, and then if you click on shortcuts over here, you're going to want to go through and look at what your shortcut is into combat settings, and you're going to look for refresh probe scan. Now I think this is initially set to, I think default is the letter B, and I chose to set this to spacebar. You have to unmap spacebar from something else, but that's always a good idea to set that in. You may want to go and set up a shortcut for decreasing and increasing your probe scan range. That is something you can actually do if you have a mouse wheel. If you hold, I believe it is Alt, and you use your mouse wheel, that will scroll your probes in or out. And then using the control key we'll show it later, will allow you to increase or decrease the space from your probes to one another. But I would highly recommend making sure you know what your probe scan refresh button is, just because it's a lot faster to use the key for that. So one of the things to keep in mind when you're doing exploration, you're looking for cosmic signatures. So the way that you're going to be able to find that is when you're in space, is you're going to want to go and look for your probe scanner. So you can either find a couple of ways. You can just go here to the scanners. It's right off the side of your overview here, and that will give you your probe scanner window, your moon and probe analysis, your directional scanner, and your solar system map. So what you're going to want to open is your probe scanner. You should always have, especially if you're in null security space, or Wormhole especially, you're going to want to make sure you have your directional scanner open, which is this window here. That just lets you know if there's somebody close to you in proximity, and also know your keys. So you can see there's someone actually scanning down this system right now as well. So I'm going to go ahead and launch my probes, which are just by clicking on your probe launcher. Now you always want to make sure you have 8 probes in your cargo bay, because what that allows you to do is it allows you to automatically reload your probe launcher without having to think about it. So once you have that open, you're going to go ahead and click on your solar system map here. You can open it from here as well, but there's a nice key right here. And what that'll do is that'll open up your screen where you can see what you're actually doing for probing. Now for this moment, I'm going to actually close my directional scanner because it allows it to be easier to see here. Your things that you have in your probe scan window, this number right here is your probe scan strength. So if you remember in the fitting video, I talked a little bit about that, but you can see I have in 79.5. And then this is the time that it will take for my scans, and this is the deviation, so the variation that will come in with my scans, how far off. And as you can see, it could be 0.08 AU off of what I actually is, so about this decent amount of variation. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to filter out your anomalies. So this is what you'll see, especially in null security. You'll have a lot of anomalies. For here in Dynamic Horde, we do a lot of ratting, so there's a lot of combat anomalies. So you want to just go ahead and remove the anomalies, and you just want to look at cosmic signatures because it'll make your life a lot easier. So in this case, you're going to see it'll tell you how far away that signature is from you. It will give you an ID so you know which one it is that you're trying to scan. This is really needed in wormholes where you will have a ton of signatures and you want to keep track of those. The name, this will start at just cosmic signature until you scan it within 25%. Under group here, this will tell you what kind of a signature it is once you get to 25%. And then this signal here will tell you how close you are to discovering what that signature is. Down here at the bottom, you have the different formations you can put your probes in. I always scan in the pinpoint formation, so this is the most common one you can use. You can also do a spread formation, which is designed to kind of scan down an entire system, but I've actually found it more effective to just increase the range on the pinpoint formation than to do the spread formation. And then you can actually create a custom formation and utilize that. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and put our probes into the pinpoint formation, and then there is actually one other thing that you want to keep in mind, and It looks like they may have actually removed the reconnect to your current lost probes. There used to be a button up here that allow you to reconnect to your probes if you lose your probes. There used to be a button up here, but it looks like they've removed that because it's pretty hard to disconnect from your probes now. And then this button here is how you recall your probes. Something to keep in mind when you're scanning is you see here it says 1 hour and 4 minutes until expiry. So basically you have an hour and 10 minutes until your probes can be in space before they'll expire and you'll lose them. Now, this is not a huge deal for me with these probes because these probes are 5,000 ISK per probe. But if you're scanning with the Sisters core scanner probes, which is very common, where those run $400,000 per or 400,000 ISK per probe, that becomes a big issue. Also, if you're in wormhole space or you're in nullsec and you scanned your way in through a wormhole, you don't want to lose your probes if you don't have backups. Because then you can wind up getting stuck, which is another reason to always carry at least 8 extra probes, just in case for whatever reason you lose the 8 that you have. Okay, so from the scanning, if you look here, you'll see our signature. You've got a red X here, and you have a circle that kind of goes around it. What that tells you is that the signature is somewhere within the radius of this, or not radius, but within the circumference of the sphere here. So somewhere inside of this is the signature that we're trying to scan down. Now, there's a couple of things you want to keep in mind. Is cosmic signatures are always within 2 AU of a celestial. So that could be a gate, that could be a moon, a planet. And so what you want to look at is when you look at the map is you want to see, is there one celestial that it has to be close to? Now, in this case, you can see we have celestials over here that are within the circle. We have celestials over here. We have celestials over here. So there's a lot of different options that you could do. So we'll hopefully see this later, but in this case, we don't know which celestial it's within 2 AU of, because it could be several. So what we're going to do is just center it here, put our probe size out to 8 AU. And so what that'll do is just cover a large circumference, and we're going to go ahead and hit scan. And so what your goal is going to be to do is to start big enough that then you're going to slowly work your way in until you scan your signature down close enough to where you can see what type of a signature it is. Now, if you're doing exploration, you're most likely looking for relic or data sites. So in this case, so you see it went up to 15%. What that tells me is you have different levels of scanning difficulty. You have level 1 scanning difficulty, you have level 2, level 3, and level 4. The harder something is to scan down, the more valuable it's going to be. So in this case, at just 8 AU going to already 15% tells me this is probably a level 2, most likely. And that's, again, just part of it's from experience as you learn. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to resize my probes down to 2 AU. So anytime you get a single red dot like this, you can almost always go down to 2 AU to scan in. You can actually skip the 4 AU and just go straight to the 2, because it means that your probes have a fairly good fix on where the cosmic signature is. So we're going to go ahead and scan again. And hopefully as we're scanning we'll get some different, oh perfect, we're going to get, so this is not designed to be a wormhole tutorial, but just for the scanning portion, I am actually, if this is to a wormhole, I am going to go into the wormhole simply because there's a lot more signatures in a wormhole, so it is actually a lot better to showcase the skills for scanning. Okay, so you can see here is it shows us the name of the signature here, and then it shows us the group, which is Wormhole. And then now that I have it at 100%, I can actually go ahead and warp to that anomaly. You can also save that, which I am always save your bookmarks, especially if you're going into wormhole space. And then we're going to go ahead and recover our active probes. The nice thing is that CCP changed this into where when you jump out of a system or you jump into a wormhole or you dock up, your ship automatically recalls your probes. But it always is a good idea just to keep that in mind and don't lose your probes, because that can be a problem. Okay, perfect. So as we can see here, this is going to, and I'm actually going to save this again here, because if you save the wormhole from here, it doesn't save right on the wormhole, but if you save it from over here, it will actually save directly on the wormhole. Okay, Perfect. So we're going to go ahead and jump into the wormhole. And so we're looking here as it's beginning to decay. Won't last another day. So that means it has somewhere from 4 to 16 hours of life left. And this is a frigate hole. Only frigates and destroyers can go into this wormhole, nothing larger. And then it has not yet had a stability strength, which means that the wormhole is still stable, so I don't have to worry about it collapsing on me. Okay, so if you see here, now I can see this is the wormhole that I'm in. Perfect, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 signatures here. I'm going to go ahead and bookmark my exit. And you always want to do this just so you don't end up getting lost. You always want to bookmark it so that you can get back out. So if for whatever reason your ship gets exploded, you want to make sure that you have a way to get out. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and create a safe spot, which is basically somewhere I can scan from that the odds of another player coming to that exact same spot are basically, in this case, next to none. Because I'm warping to a random anomaly, I'm dropping a bookmark in the middle of space, and then I'm going to warp back to that bookmark. So unless they happen to warp from where I was to that exact same anomaly and drop a bookmark at the exact same point that I did, they're never going to land on top of me. So, okay, so now we have our scan window. So now you can see we have several different signatures, and they're kind of all over the place. So we've got some that are over here, some that are over here. So perfect. So we're going to start with this one over here, because this will actually demonstrate what I was talking about with the being within 2 AU of a celestial. So you can see here is that there's only one celestial body, that's this moon and this planet, that are within the circumference of this here. So what we're going to do is, rather than starting at 8 AU to scan this down, we're actually just going to center ourselves on the planet here. Oop, wrong planet, this one. And we're going to center our probes on that planet, and we're going to start at 4 AU. And we're going to go ahead and scan. Now, something you do want to keep in mind, so wormhole space is much easier to scan than null security. So you can scan with much lower probe strength than I have. So in null security space, it is actually more difficult to scan the anomalies down. Wormhole space is actually easier to scan so that you can have lower probe strength and still scan everything down. So you can see there within just the 4 AU, I was able to get that signature and can scan that down. Now I can see here this is actually my exit, because there's only one here. This is the wormhole I came in, is the one that I'm scanning down right now. And I actually could have done it if I just looked at my bookmark. So what I'm going to do is just scroll in on my bookmark, center it there because I know that's where it is, and then I'm actually just going to ignore this. So what you can do is, when you find something you decide you don't want to do anything with it, you can just go ahead and ignore that result, and what it will do is it will remove that from your list, so you can see that one no longer shows up. Okay, so then we're going to go ahead and so what I would normally do when I'm in a wormhole is you just scroll into the very center of the sun and put your probes all the way out to 16 AU. And what this is going to do is, it's not going to give you a real close scan on anything, but it's going to capture, depending on the size of the wormhole, it'll bring most of your anomalies, your signatures, within to a red dot where you can scan within 2 AU. So you can see is 4 out of my 5 cosmic signatures are all within enough that I can scan them at 2 AU. So now what I can do is I can just go to one of them, and then I can drop my probes down to 2 AU. And what this does is it just speeds up, because rather than trying to scan each one of those at 8 AU and then scan my way in, I do one scan, get most of them, and then I can go to each one of them and start scanning at 2 AU now. And this again is big in Wormhole when you have, this is actually a very low, from a standpoint of a normal wormhole, this is very few signatures to see in a wormhole. Okay, so in this case, as you can see here, move my probes here, we have a little smaller sphere. So we scanned it down and then it said, okay, it still is not quite there. It means the probes don't quite have a fix on it. In this case, it's a little bit dicey. We should still be at 1 AU. We should still be able to go down, but it is possible that I might have to go back to 2 AU and scan it one more time. But we're going to give it a shot at 1 AU. Okay, and that worked. So in this case, it dropped down a little bit, but it did not go down a lot in the size of the sphere. I'm going to keep it at 1 AU and scan again before I drop the size down on the probes. Because with the sphere, it could be anywhere along the outside of that sphere, and the hard part is you don't know exactly where. Okay, so we have another wormhole. Oh, perfect. Okay, this is one of the potentially most confusing, but this is also the best result that you can get when you're scanning, is you will have a point where if you see these two points, so you're scanning one thing and you have 2 points that it could be at, what that tells you have 2 different sets of probes got a hit on the signature, and one of them is false. So what I used to do before I figured this out was you just pick one and hope for the best. It used to be you could double click and it would always take you to the wrong one, I think, but they fixed that so it's random. So what it means is that the anomaly that is farthest from the center of your probes is the correct one. The one that is closer to your center of your probes is the wrong one. So what you do in this case is just decrease your probe size one time. So I'm going to go down to 0.5 AU, and you look for the cosmic signature that is still within your probe range. So if I see here, this one is still within range of this probe here. So what that means is this is the wrong one, and this one here that's outside of the range is the correct one. So what you do is go ahead and center on the one that's outside of your range, and the nice thing is you can actually drop down. So I dropped down one time, is you can actually drop down again. Now I don't need to, but I can actually go to 0.25 AU, and this will actually take me from completely scanning it all the way in. So that's something to keep in mind, is when you do get a double result like this, just look for the one that is, shrink your probes down one more level from wherever you're at, and whichever one is outside of your probe window is the correct one. Or if they're both outside, whichever one is farther outside of your probe window is the correct one. And that is one of the potentially most confusing things that you'll see when you scan, but it is also, if you know how to utilize it right, it is the easiest one, because it's really easy to tell which one is the right one, and it actually allows you to scan in closer. Okay, so again, we have a situation here where there's only one within the 2 AU, but because we're already at the red dot from here, we can actually drop down to 2 AU, center it on the red dot, and we'll go ahead and scan from there. Okay, perfect. So we have a data site. So this is just a, well, this is not a wormhole video specifically, since we are scanning in a wormhole. I do want to clarify that when you're in a wormhole, you always want to look for the pirate name in a site if you're doing exploration. So in this case, it's a Central Angel survey site, which is fine. You can go ahead and run that. There will be no rats. There are other sites that come up in wormholes that say Forgotten or Perimeter or something like that. Those all have rats that are pretty strong, depending on which type of wormhole you're in. And in just about any exploration ship that you would take into those sites, unless you're flying like a cruiser like the Stratios, you're going to die. So as an explorer, if you're like me, you're flying in an exploration frigate, you always want to, if you're in wormholes, always check to make sure that it has a pirate name in the name of the site before you go in and run it, so that you don't wind up getting yourself killed. Okay, so perfect. So this is another one just like we talked about, where we have 2 results that came in. So we're going to go ahead and shrink our probe size down 1. And as you'll notice, we have this one is just barely outside, and this one is still inside of the window. So that means this here is the correct one. So we're going to go ahead and center our probes on that. And we're going to come in here, drop our probe size down 1, And then we're going to go ahead and scan again. And so you'll see as I went from, I believe it was at 2 AU, I was able to drop all the way down to 0.5 AU. So I was at 9%, and this should go to almost 100% depending on what type of signature I have. Yep, perfect. So I went all the way up to 91%. Okay, and so you'll see here it says Forgotten Frontier Recursive Depot. This is an example of what we call sleeper sites. Or not sleeper sites, sorry. It's going to come to me, I'll have to look at it. But basically what this is going to have, it's going to have sleepers in it, but this is going to have the rats. So you do not want to warp to this site unless you are in a combat cruiser. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and pick one of these. Actually, we'll do the other one because this is smaller. So as you can see here, this has a very small red circle. And what this means is that my signature is going to be somewhere along this circumference here of this red circle. Now, in my case, I found the easiest way to do this. There is actually a way to go through and figure out where on that line it is. I'm not great at that. I'm going to just rescan it at 2 AU and bring it down to the red point. But you do know that it's somewhere within that, and you want to be careful about shrinking too small. Always err on the side of scanning a little bit bigger until you get a lot of experience. Okay, so we went down to just the one here. We're going to go ahead and shrink that down and scan. Okay, so I have a relic site again, and so what you'll look at is, if you notice here it said that this is a level 2 site, this is a level 3 site, this is level 1. This is about scanning difficulty. In general, the higher the level of difficulty of the scan, the more valuable whatever it is that you're scanning down is going to be. So in this case, this is a relic site. Now, as far as I know, all of the sites with rats are always level 3. So in wormholes, it's not a guaranteed, but it's pretty likely if you see a level 3 on a relic or data site, that's probably going to be one that you don't want to warp to. As you'll see here again, it is a Forgotten Frontier Recursive Depot. So that is something we are not going to want to go ahead and warp to. If you see a relic or data site when you're in a wormhole that is level 1, level 2, or level 4, I don't think I've ever seen a time where that wasn't something you could, where it was other than a pirate site. Okay, so in this one, you'll notice that I took them all the way out to 8 AU because there are several celestials within the border that it could be. So we're just going to go straight to 8 AU. We're going to go ahead and analyze, and then we'll work our way in from there. Okay, so it's 0.6, so that is actually a good thing. So as I mentioned earlier, when you get a low hit on your initial scan at 8 AU, that doesn't always guarantee, but it's usually a pretty good sign that you have a potentially valuable site that you're scanning down. And so as I'm seeing here that I only am still at 1%, that tells me this is probably a good site. So you'll see here I got another double result here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and drop that down. This is where you'll see this makes a really big deal. Like on the other ones I was already in at like 2 AU or 4 AU, but since I'm at 8 AU, you can see here this one is just barely in at the bottom over here. This one up here is going to be outside of my probe circle, again just barely, but what that tells me is this is the correct one here. So I'm going to go ahead and center my probes on that. And what's nice is I'm going to be able to drop down from 4 AU to 2 AU, and even though I'm only at 1% here, I know that this signature is right in this area, so I can actually zero in and I'll be able to kick up the strength of my scan pretty significantly. And again, this is just something that allows you to be able to tell this and to scan faster even if you don't have amazing skills. Okay, so it's still only at 7 AU, which is fantastic. That means there's something potentially a level 4, which would possibly be a relic or data site. It could be a ghost site, which is a possibility, or it just could be a wormhole that's difficult to scan down. Nope, so we got a relic site. Oh, in this case, it's level 3. You'll have that now and then where the level 3s will be easy to scan down. You'll have it now and then where they're hard to scan down. In this case, this is a more difficult one to scan down. So this will most likely will be a Frontier recursive. It could actually be a pirate relic site, but generally, most of the time when I do wormholes, the level 3s are, yeah, it's the sites that have the rats in it that you don't want to do. So I'm going to go ahead and end this video here, and hopefully this explains just kind of some of the basic concepts around scanning. Again, if you have questions about the skills and things that affect your scanning, please take a look at my other video that discusses skills and fits. But as you kind of saw here, what I just did with the wormhole, this is really, that's all there is to scanning. It's fairly simple once you understand the just the process around it, and you just kind of work your way in with your probes. And then obviously I'm using a setup here that is designed to be something that you would be able to fly within a day or two of starting an account. If you work your way up, you have some money, you can get Sister's Core Scanner probes, you'll be faster, you'll be better, you can fly better ships, it'll also allow you to do better. So hopefully that helps.